Welcome, everyone. You're listening to the Expressed and Orgasmic Living podcast, the show that teaches you how to go from feeling stifled and suffocated in your life to expressed and orgasmic. Here you will receive tips on how to honor yourself, fulfill your desires, and feel truly alive again. I'm your co-host, Renee Faith, Orgasmic Soul Freedom Coach.
And I'm your co-host, Sherrie, Life Expression Coach. Welcome to this week's episode. Today, we're talking about how you can distinguish your truth in the midst of shame attack and stand in your power and truth.
So good to be back with you. Welcome to this new episode of Expressed and Orgasmic Living. I'm your co-host, Renee Faith. This is Sherrie, Life Expression Coach.
Hello.
We are here today to talk about cultural shame.
Yes.
It's been really present for me the past few months because of the separation from my husband. And very recently, I went to a cousin's wedding. Mm-hmm. Before going to the cousin's wedding, I think I told you this, Sherrie, before going to the cousin's wedding, my mother had messaged me and she said, don't tell anybody you're separated. Just pretend that, he's home with the kids. And she was like, I'm doing this for you. Like, I'm doing this to protect you. I'm reminding you because all your aunties are going to gossip and they're going to talk bad. So just lie. Mm-hmm. Don't tell them you're separated. And, I always hated that because growing up, there was always that nagging for my mom to, she was always so aware of how others will perceive us. Right. How the rest of the Chinese community, the Asian community will perceive us, the Burmese community will perceive us. And I hated living like that, right? Yeah. Especially as a child, you're just like, I'm just doing me. Like, why do I have to worry about what, women 30 years older than me think about me? It was always really annoying. And this time it was interesting because I knew that if I went to the wedding and I talked about the separation, there were going to be some aunties that would not have been nice, and it would have been uncomfortable, and it would have been an energy drain. And so when I did go to the wedding, there was one cousin, a couple of cousins who already knew, and then there was one uncle who asked me directly, so how's, you and, your, I don't want to say his name, but, my soon-to-be ex-husband. And I said, well, because you asked me directly, I'll tell you, we did separate 9 months ago. Mm-hmm. There was another aunt that came, and she asked, and I just straight up lied to her. And I was like, yep, nope, he's good. Yep, he's still commuting. Everything's good. But it was just to protect my energy, right?
Yeah.
But there's that cultural shame that we have to face when we choose to honor ourselves. Mm-hmm. And the separation was clearly me choosing me and honoring my heart and my mental health, right? My joy, my peace. So I think it's we have to be aware that that's the outcome. When we choose ourselves, when we honor ourselves and our joy, some others may be uncomfortable with that.
Yeah.
And in this instance, it's the larger community, Asian community, that's like, you know what? Divorce is not a good look. My parents even one time said, stay separated. It's okay. We know many people who stay separated in the Burmese community. Just don't get divorced. Just pretend you're still together.
There's times where staying together makes sense and being apart makes sense. Yeah. And in your case, it just makes sense. And sometimes our culture upbringing, it doesn't make sense. It
doesn't make sense.
Tradition in a lot of ways doesn't make sense to me. It's like tradition reminds me of religion. Mm. It's like something to keep us in order and in line, and I'm resistant to that. I'm resistant to that big time.
Boxes and boxes, right?
More boxes. Yeah. Jack in the box. That's what we are. Jack in the box. They scare me. They terrify me. Yep. So, wow. Yeah.
So the cultural, in the face of that cultural shame, I just have to say, sorry if that makes you think one way of me, right? Mm-hmm. But it's not worth my children seeing an unhealthy marriage,
Right.
thinking that's what a real marriage is supposed to be like. It's not worth it.
Nope.
So I choose me. You deal with your emotions and your thoughts about it on your own.
Exactly, because it's none of your business what they think about it.
Yeah. But for some people, though, I'll say, especially in the Asian culture, where it is really taboo and looked down upon, some people will let that cultural shame win and help them make their choice. So instead of honoring themselves, they choose to honor what the community thinks they should do, and they stay in the unhappy marriage.
Yeah.
Well,
it's kind of my story is almost in contrast of yours, because the cultural shame that I'm dealing with in my marriage is staying in my marriage in spite of the trauma that's gone on within the marriage, with my husband being an addict. He's not an addict now. He's in sobriety. He's celebrating many months of that right now. So yay, we're happy for that. However, in the times where he struggled with it, it caused my mental state to plummet when it was already down in the gutter. Talking about it with family and friends, their solution was to leave him, and that he's the blame for my mental condition. And no, I didn't believe that he was the blame for my mental condition, considering that my mental condition is bipolar disorder, where the depression, family and friends, their solution was to leave him, and that he's the blame for my mental condition. And no, I didn't believe that he was the blame for my mental condition, considering that my mental condition is bipolar disorder, where depression is a big piece of that. And yes, it exasperated it, but he wasn't the cause of it. So I was fighting against that all the time, and the only way that I would get help or support was to lie and say, I'm going to move on, or, I'm in the process of thinking, of getting a separation. I'm looking into it. I'm not looking into it, but this is what I'm telling them so that they feel comfortable in the choice to help me, and that hurts. It hurts, because my husband is someone who I love, and my children love him too. And yes, our problems affected them, but our wins have affected them too, and they're really happy now. We're all in a healthy place. We take our vows seriously, through sickness and in health. Okay, he was going through a sickness. Now I'm going through a sickness. We're bouncing off of each other, and it's our choice to honor that vow. And even though vows are like tradition and all this other stuff, it's just something that just keeps us in integrity, because this is what we want to do.
So you're saying, so you got shamed in the opposite way. So you got shamed by your family and community
for staying with an addict.
When they felt, so this is all this external assumptions, external boxes, external expectations, right, of us. So they were saying, it doesn't make sense for you to stay with an addict. And on one level, they really were caring for you, thinking that his addiction was creating your mental health issues. When you were clear, it wasn't. It was a separate, independent issue. It was your bipolar disorder, and that it wasn't a marriage issue. It was your own body mechanics, right?
Yes.
So it's interesting that they were shaming you, thinking they knew better.
Yeah.
Instead of saying, hey, Sherrie, what does your internal truth look like?
Yeah.
Instead of tuning in and saying, what would honor you? They made assumptions and had their own expectations based on all these other stereotypical relationships with addicts.
Yeah.
And they try to project and impose and oppress, you
Yes.
into,
Not even in an inspiring way, like not in a way that I could take something from it and maybe be inspired to apply it to my life. It was more of a, you're kind of dumb for staying with him, like you're bringing this upon yourself type thing. And I had one relative, my aunt, she's recently deceased a few years now, but she was the only person who could relate to everything that I'm going through.
yeah,
She was with an addict. They were married for years, and they did the same with her. There were issues and what have you. But her story was inspiring to me. She would say to me, well, do you really want to leave? Do you feel like you need to leave? I'm like, no, it's just that, it's just that he has this issue. On a personality level, he's like awesome. We fit. He's like he's my best friend. He's a wonderful father. That's sick. And then I look at it like, well, how would I feel if he decided he was going to leave me because I can't get out of my depression and I can't get sexually active and I can't do all these things that, I hate to say what a man needs, but what a man desires in his wife, I can't show up for him like that. He could have left, but he didn't. He stuck through it, and I stuck with it with him. And no one seems to get that. They see it as he is the villain to my issues. When in reality, I feel like I'm the villain to his issues. So me working on myself, he's working on himself. We're coming together in such a healthy place right now. We still have our personal demons, but we worked it out where we can talk about it, help each other through it. And that's that. We're still together. We've been married for 16 years.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 16 years.
I love that you had your aunt there.
Yeah,
and
I had her.
I think when we're trying to gauge who we can receive advice from, lean towards the person who's actually asking questions, right? And is curious about you and your truth and where your energy lies. Yeah. So it's really interesting. It's my community is shaming me into staying in an unhappy marriage, and yours was trying to get you out of.
Want me to get out of the marriage.
And in both cases, it's just people not understanding our needs,
right?
Not drilling down to look at, well, what would make you happy,
right?
And so if they're not doing it for us, we've got to do it for ourselves.
Exactly.
Right? Like, what would, kind of harping back on the last episode, like, what is the inevitable cost if I don't make, a choice to honor myself? So for you honored yourself. You coped with it the best way you could, which was just lie to them, be like, yeah, I'm looking into separation.
Yeah.
Just to get them off your back. And that was good.
Yeah. I put him out, we're not together. And it was just so much easier to at least feel like they're on my side for something, because I know good and damn well they're not going to be on my side now. They're like, you're glutton for punishment. There's no guarantee he'll stay sober. Hey, there's no guarantee I'm going to not be depressed. In fact, it's predicted that I will be. Yeah. We're heading into the colder months. Seasonal affective disorder that's a real thing. On top of bipolar depression, we're already planning ahead for that. Just like for his thing, he has a plan for that too. He has sponsors, he has support groups, he has me, he has his kids. We're all rallied for him, just like I need people rallied for me. Yeah. And I wasn't getting that.
Yeah. And when people are shaming you,
you're not going to get that.
It's this whole energy of, being embarrassed, humiliated, maybe.
Yeah.
And so shame makes you go inward and want to hide. And the only way to, I think, Brene Brown says this, the only way to get rid of shame is to keep it in front of you, because it can
Yes.
only attack you if it's behind you.
Yeah.
And so how do you keep shame in front of you? How do you keep it in front of you, right? Cultural shame, personal shame, whatever it is. Looking at it, talking about it, sharing it, right?
Yeah.
And so for me, with the separation, me telling my uncle, right, who asked me directly about my ex, me telling him directly was freeing. It's like, this was my choice. I honored myself. And by sharing it with my uncle, it's just like declaring to him, the family, the community, the universe, just declaring like, I'm not sorry. I honor myself. It feels good. And I'm going to own my choice, and I'm going to step into this new level of freedom for me. So sharing it, speaking about it openly,
How did your uncle receive it though?
Oh, he was great. I was really lucky. A lot of my the aunts, uncles, cousins, they were just like, okay, well, you look great today, so that's a good sign.
Yeah.
And we just kind of kept it light. We didn't really dig into the details, but it was great to have that support. They were like, as long as you feel good. And then some of the older cousins were really great and said, you'll find somebody else. And
and I think by you telling your truth to your uncle, it'll like have a trickle down effect, maybe. Like he'll like inadvertently advocate for you. Like if he hears an auntie saying something, he'll probably put his opinion on it that directly contradicts theirs in the way that he's advocating for you.
Yeah. And then you build support that way, right?
Yeah.
And you start to build. So it's really a training. When you honor yourself and your truth, you're training others to honor you as well.
Yeah.
It can take time depending on how resistant your community is, your personal community, your larger community. It can take time.
Yeah. Now that's time if you're willing to invest in it. That's a big piece too. Are you willing to invest in that time that it's going to take to wait for them to come around to some acceptance to your boundaries that you set?
And so then that brings us to like, hey, do we keep people in our lives or not?
Yeah.
Right. So if I have aunts, uncles, or even a parent that is like, nope, we don't agree with your choice. I really think you should have stayed married. I think you're making a horrible mistake. And if that conversation keeps happening, it's not going to be helpful to me and my mental health.
No, the quality of your relationship is just shit now.
And it's not going to be helpful to my kids who may overhear. And so if that's the case, right, every time we honor our truth and step into choosing us, there will be people who may be uncomfortable and resistant. And if they're continually resistant, then you have to have make another choice where, do I keep this person near me, or do I push them away for the time being? And that's a real thing to ponder when you're flexing that mastery muscle and choosing yourself. Inevitably, you are going to make other people unhappy because they don't want you to choose you. They want you in that box that makes them comfortable, right?
Yeah. I don't like boxes.
No, we don't.
Everyone, I don't think anyone truly likes to be in a box. I mean, it might just feel safer that way, just to coast along life, but deep down inside, you want to explode out of that box. It hurts. It hurts your body, like we talked about in the last episode. You're going to end up hurting your body.
Because you feel the oppression, right? Like the physical box is boxing you in. You feel closed in. You feel like you can't get out. You feel suffocated.
Yeah, you feel it on your head. You get the headache. You feel it in your shoulders because you're squeezed in.
Right, like you should do this. You should do that. All the shoulds. Yeah.
Yep. And it's a horrible feeling, but so completely opposite when you step outside of that box. Once you lift that top up, you get a peek around. It's not stop from there. You're out, and it's to hell with everyone else and their opinions. It's like it's all about you now. You're feeling really good. You're good in your skin. You're good in your being.
I want to go back to your aunt for a little bit because she asked questions, and I think questions are amazing.
She asked me, the first question she asked me was, do I still love my husband?
Yeah.
And I, without any hesitation, was like, yes.
Yeah.
You know, and that was like, well, that's all I needed to hear. She goes, you're going to work it out. It's going to be hard. He's going to relapse. It's inevitable, you know, but it can be a longer time if he keeps, you know, getting the support, getting that help that he needs, which he is doing. And what he has done. But, you know, it's like a terminally, it's like an autoimmune disease, to be honest with you, addiction, because it can go away. You're in like a remission, and then something triggers you, and then it's back up again. You know, I had to do a lot of education on it, and that's the problem. People don't actually do the education on addiction and mental illnesses and the connection of the two.
Right.
You know,
so it's this whole, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, people really need to be willing to educate themselves. Like my community and my family included, like, please educate yourselves before you judge. You know, educate yourself. If you don't want to, if you don't want to, you know, invest more time into understanding what my husband goes through, well, at least understand what I go through, and then maybe you'll understand why I am still sticking it out. You know,
but it's this practice of like, let's really look at the thing, right? Let's really look at it. Let's ask questions. Let's get down to the nitty gritty. So, for example, with the divorce and in the Asian community, I've heard some other people say, "Hey, it feels like a failure, not just in the marriage, but a failure at life."
Right.
So now so if this was a client, I would say, well, let's really take a look at that statement. Is it a fact? And this is why I brought up your aunt. Like, questions are so key. Is this a fact or is it a story?
Right.
So what are the facts?
Yeah.
The facts are, you know, it was unfulfilling.
Loveless.
It was loveless. The facts are there were arguments and yelling. But none of that actually equates to being a failure at life, right? So that statement is a story. So we want to parse it all out, and be really mindful of what we're saying to each other. It's like my son, like during, I think it was around the 6-month mark after the separation, he said he had a very tender moment, and he said he basically felt like he was losing his father. And I said to him, well, let's just look at that statement. Are you losing your father? Is it possible to lose your father? Because your father's in your blood.
Right.
Your father is, you know, here alive, and he can see you. The fact is, he doesn't live with us.
Right.
But you're never going to lose him. It's impossible. Your father's your father. You can't have a different father midlife. Your father will always be your father. You will never lose your father. Impossible. The fact is, he's no longer living with us. So we want to separate out the fact from the story, so that we can really address the issue, address the pain, address the grieving, the healing. So I you know, in case that was helpful for anybody, but I think that is really key, to talk about the shame, look at it, study it, ask these questions, and break out what is story and what is fact. Because once you stand on the facts side, then you feel good about honoring your choice, honoring you.
That's
when
right.
you stand on the story side, which is most likely shame.
I was going to say that.
External sources.
You stay on that story side. You might as well just keep digging your hole, and you're down there. You're spiraling back into the shame cycle. So it's the stories. We have the power to change the narrative. You know, and like you said, it's about asking the questions and separating fact from fiction. You know, so the fact with me is my husband has addiction issues. That's a fact. A fact too is that I am bipolar with ADHD and post-traumatic complex CPTSD. I'm going to say that. So those are facts. And another fact is that he is going to support groups, and he has a medical team that helps him through it too. Another fact is I also have support groups, and I also see a psychiatrist, right? And the story is he's going to do it all over again. You're gonna, he's gonna break your heart. He's gonna do all these things that's gonna spiral you back into depression. And that's just a story. No. Yeah, it's a story that I'm not willing to
buy into.
Exactly. I'm looking at the facts that he has this, and this is a probability. These are true facts that there's a probability that he might relapse. That's a fact. And it's a fact too that with bipolar disorder, I may not be upbeat for a while. It's a fact that I may spiral into depression and I may need some kind of care. That's a fact. But the story that, I'm depressed because of his actions or he's using because of my action, those are all stories.
Is it possible that there could be another story in the scenario like that? The story could be, well, you're weak for staying with him.
Yes. You're codependent.
Yeah.
That's the big story, that you're codependent.
And this is specific to Sherrie's scenario, right? Because she's got the bipolar and he's got the addiction. This is specific to her. And for other marriages and relationships where there is an addiction, the codependency may very well be a fact.
Yeah.
We don't know. So you've got to ask these questions, look at yourself honestly and parse it all out. But in her situation, that was the story. Not fact that she's codependent. That wasn't true for her.
Because I could separate myself from him and I could do things on my own. And the same with him. He can definitely do things without me. There is no codependency. There's just love and commitment to our vows. And we are really strong in staying in integrity with that. No pressure from religion or anything else. We are just like our zodiac signs. It tells you that we're loyal. That's for real. That's not story. That's fact.
Okay.
We're loyal beings. He's a Capricorn and I am a Cancer. So I love hard and he works hard, and we work hard to stay together, and I love him. So I'm a love hard to stay together. So it could be story, but I like to call it fact.
Yeah.
It's fact.
I think these are some great tips that we're offering up our viewers.
Yes.
If this has been impactful for you and you've been inspired, please feel free to drop down in the comments what your thoughts are. Give us some feedback. We would love to hear from you. Oh boy. I'm so happy we had this conversation.
Yes, always. Always. You see, I'm getting all comfortable in my chair, got my feet up. You can't see it, but I'm like sitting on my foot. I have my lollipop. This might be a thing. The lollipop.
I like it. Stay sweet.
Yes. Yeah, we'll talk about the lollipop another time.
Oh, okay. I didn't know there was a whole thing behind the lollipop. Okay, we will.
Yeah. Well, I told you I'm 7 days without. I told you last week that I put the vape down.
Yes.
This is my replacement because I'm trying to
Got it.
deal with the habit of having something in my hands and the oral fixation.
Yep. Another level of freedom for you. There you go.
Yep. So there you have it. Lollipop will be in the episodes.
Thanks so much for joining us. We're so honored that you stay tuned and watch the whole episode. We would love to hear from you. Definitely leave your comments below, like and subscribe. And we will see you guys in the next episode.
Next week.
Yeah.
Bye. Thank you so much for listening. We hope you enjoyed this new episode, and if you did, please leave us a like and subscribe. Also, feel free to let us know what topics you'd like to see covered in future episodes. Get in touch in the comments and visit us on our websites, reneefaith.com and sherrielynell.com, to learn more about how we can serve you on your journey. All links below in the description. See you next week's episode. Bye now.